Hello. So, welcome back to Ripe Talks. Today we're doing a fun topic because today we're talking about high school. I figure since it was my brother's first time going to high school and we were having this phone call and he was asking me for advice and I had so much to give that I was like, hold on a second. He wants this advice and it's helping him. So I was like, okay, this is a freaking video. Let's get this show on the road. Oh my god, okay. So I decided to make a video for, new high school students who are going into high school. Of course, it's during COVID. I have no experience with high school during COVID, but I can offer some advice in terms of high school overall and my experience in high school and kind of just, I guess, ease your worries because it's not as bad as you think it's going to be or, I don't know, not as scary as you think it might be. So I have 5 big tips I would offer you, and I'll kind of go in order, and there's no order of importance, but just based on what comes to mind and what I think could be good to know. So number 1 would be first impressions with teachers. Okay, this is...
If I wish I knew this, but I didn't have to know this because I was pretty studious.
In high school, and I was pretty quiet in the beginning at least, so teachers automatically thought I was a good student. But if you have a lot of subjective classes, so what I mean by subjective classes are classes where your assignments and your tests are not objectively marked. So like math, you'd have a yes or no answer, so either this person got it correct or they did not get it correct. Or even physics, or even, sorry guys, or even like other classes. If you have a lot of subjective classes like English, drama, phys ed, history even, anything essay-based, anything that requires a teacher to interpret your work and then assign you a grade, make sure you have a good impression with those teachers because they're going to automatically position you on an A student, B student, C student level, and they're going to give you an ability to upgrade your level because that's how we assume teaching works. So they'll give you that opportunity, but you can only, they'll cap it off somewhere. So if you're a C student producing A quality work, there is a likelihood you could just get to B+, and that's just where they positioned you. So it's really important in the beginning to, at least have a good impression for those types of teachers. You want to make sure you position yourself accordingly. It really sucks, but grades are not a real representation of your knowledge or your ability. And for these subjective classes, it's important to position yourself in a certain range you want to hit. So this is my biggest advice, and what that means is just literally like observing on the first few days of classes, first few weeks even, instead of like talking to friends, calling, fidgeting, wearing like kind of like, I guess you could say like sweatpants, stuff like that, things that maybe would position you as like a slacker or all these things. You want to stay away from that. You want to create a first good impression so that you position yourself for those subjective classes at the highest level you can. I know it sounds crazy because you're like, that's not true, it's all fair. No, it's not. It's really not. And like some teachers, they're wonderful. Like, don't get me wrong. I had a few teachers who they would ask you for your assignment with a randomized number to identify you with as opposed to your actual name so that when they do grade your work, they're not grading your work through their biases, which honestly, those teachers, I commend them so much because that's the kind of dedication to teaching that all teachers should have, but not all of them do. So make sure you keep that in mind during your first few weeks at high school. So number 2, don't be nervous. Okay, I know this sounds crazy because a lot of people are like, hey, don't be nervous, all these things, but I mean that. Don't be nervous. Everyone is just as nervous as you are, and if they're not as nervous, they probably have like an older sibling that like guided them through it, or their temperament's different, but it doesn't matter. The whole idea is that they're nervous in their own way. So if they're not nervous about classes, they're probably nervous about friends. If they're not nervous about friends, they're probably nervous about what their parents will think about their grades. If they're not nervous about what their parents will think, they're nervous about like their future. If they're not nervous about anything, then I don't know. Like lucky them. But most likely there's something in the back of their minds just kind of inching its way forward and causing them distress. So you're not alone in that experience. Don't think you are the only person who's nervous. Everyone around you is just as nervous, and I promise you the teachers are also just as nervous. As an adult, right? Oh god, that was cringe. Anyway, as an adult, I can tell you that the teachers are nervous just as much as you are, because they want to do well, they want their classes to go well, they want their students to like them, they want their students to do well, they want their department heads to approve of them, they don't want to get COVID. Yeah, so, which, by the way, it's a whole other category. It's crazy that they're not letting you guys stay at home until January, but I digress. Well, until whenever the vaccine is released, which is most likely like January or February, from what I've been hearing. So, which, once again, very refutable, but anyway. Number 3, okay? Get comfortable with the space beforehand. So even if it's just like you driving outside, try to reduce the uncertainty of your experience. It's already uncertain enough that, you know, having the environment be uncomfortable and unknown would add to that experience. You want to make sure that you're reducing uncertainty as much as possible to reduce your anxious feelings about it. So if that just means driving around with your parents or walking around the school before school starts, just to get an idea of where like the exits are, like where the windows are, like just a physical idea of the building, where the parks are, where, you know, the closest like restaurant is, where the closest coffee shop is, things like that. That's going to help ease your uncertainty about the experience. Now, number 4, I'd also recommend, this is more of a philosophical point, but I recommend driving by your elementary school before going to high school and seeing how small that place looks. Most likely, after you drive by your elementary school and you see how small and like in the past it looks, you'll realize that your high school will look the same once you graduate. That's the human experience. When things are new to us, they're big and scary and impactful. But once they're over, they tend to look small and miniature. We don't look at them anymore as like these big structures. We look at the building and go, oh, that's my high school. That's my former high school. So you will feel like that, you know? And just remember that in the back of your mind, that no matter how big and scary your high school looks now, eventually it's going to look small. And that should be a comforting thought, that for everybody, that's the case for everybody. It's not just you. And that's the case with anything. I mean, your first business, it looks so scary to create it. And then you create it and you're like, oh, well, that was not hard. And then you go and create another one. Same with, you know, my personal experience. My first book, wrote the first book. That was a big, scary undertaking. Then I'm like, wait a second, that was not difficult. You do another one. You know what I mean? So that's the same thing with high school. Don't be scared of it, because you're going to look back one day and be like, that actually looks kind of small now compared to what I'm doing. So be excited for that. Enjoy it. And that leads me naturally to my 5th point. Honestly, just have fun and be as open-minded as you can be. So what I mean by this is be open-minded about the people you know, the people you talk to. You might learn a lot from people you might not necessarily gravitate towards immediately, but you find yourself in classes and you get along, and then you're like, wait a second, this person's really nice and fun, and they're in a different group than I am, but like they're really cool. Don't be scared of that sensation, because this person clearly connected with you on a level, and that's valuable. Same with classes. Don't be scared to experiment. If you're really drawn towards the arts or towards science, and you know you've been thinking that like you hate science or you hate the arts, and then suddenly you're like, hey, wait a second, that class looks really interesting. Don't be scared to test that out, because this is your opportunity to experiment. A lot of people will have you believe that you have to, know everything right away. That's not the case at all. Like you can explore, and you should explore. And now is the time to do that. So that you have an idea at least of what you're gravitating towards naturally, without any of your biases from the past. So those are my 5 tips. I really hope you guys have a good time. I'm really excited to hear the stories my brother tells. I know I had a good time in high school. Well, given my personality of I was initially really scared, and then I came out of my shell. So after that happened, it was a good time. So yeah, try to enjoy the best you can and learn as much as you can and be open-minded, and yeah, hopefully these tips help you. Please let me know if you guys would like more tips. I can also do tips for university students, because been there, done that. So yeah, anyway, yeah, okay, cool. Enjoy. Zen. Clearly I'm not zen, but I had a coffee, so. But yeah, be zen. It's chill. It's good. You're gonna have fun. I promise. Be good. And be good. Yeah. Bye.